Emily was a young girl from Earth, no older than 16, with an endless sense of curiosity. She lived on a small human colony located on the edge of the galaxy. Though Earth had advanced in many ways, it was still considered a young and weak civilization by the rest of the galaxy. The Galactic Council, a powerful group of alien races, controlled the fate of the universe. They ruled over countless species with an iron fist, believing that humanity was too primitive to be a threat. Emily loved to explore. The vast galaxy was full of mysteries, and she dreamed of discovering ancient alien civilizations. Her father, a scientist, often told her stories of the stars and the secrets they held. Emily would listen carefully, her eyes wide with wonder, imagining herself uncovering lost relics from the past. She was fascinated by the alien ruins scattered across distant planets, remnants of civilizations long gone. One day, while exploring a remote world with her father, Emily discovered a strange object buried deep beneath the ground. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before, glowing with a faint light and covered in ancient symbols. She knelt beside it, running her fingers over the surface, feeling a strange energy pulsating through the air. She didn't know it then, but that object would change everything for her and for all of humanity. The Galactic Council had eyes everywhere. They monitored every planet, every colony, every being in the galaxy. They saw the human explorers and their discoveries, and they watched Emily carefully. The Council had their own reasons for keeping the galaxy's secrets hidden, and the last thing they wanted was for humans to uncover a power greater than their own. The object Emily found was not just any relic, it was a key to something ancient and powerful, something that could challenge the Council's control over the galaxy. The decision was made swiftly. The Galactic Council would not allow the humans to discover this power. They knew the humans had the potential to become a dangerous force, and so they sent a group of their elite soldiers to eliminate Emily before she could learn more about the artifact. The soldiers arrived under the cover of night, landing quietly on the outskirts of the colony. They were well-trained, cold, and ruthless. They had been sent to do one thing: kill Emily and make sure no one else would find the artifact. They were not there to ask questions or show mercy. As Emily stood in the ruins, marveling at the object she had discovered, the first of the Council's soldiers stepped forward. They moved swiftly, taking her by surprise. Before she could react, they overpowered her, knocking her unconscious and dragging her away. The soldiers didn't care that she was a child. To them, she was just another problem to solve. Back at the Council's hidden base, the decision was made. Emily was to be executed to ensure that no one would find out about the ancient power she had uncovered. The Galactic Council believed that they were doing the galaxy a favor, eradicating the threat before it could grow. They were wrong. Emily's family was devastated. Her father, who had always encouraged her to explore, was the first to realize that something had gone terribly wrong. He searched tirelessly for her, reaching out to anyone who might help. But the Galactic Council was too powerful. No one dared to challenge them. Emily's disappearance remained a mystery, and the Council's soldiers made sure there were no traces left behind. The human colony was shaken to its core. Emily had been one of their brightest, most hopeful young minds. Her death felt like a loss, not just for her family, but for all of humanity. People whispered in the streets, wondering who would be next. They knew the Council was not kind to those who opposed them. But no one had ever expected something like this to happen to a human child. As the days passed, the humans tried to move on, but the pain of losing Emily was unbearable. Her family couldn't let go of the fact that she had been taken from them without reason, without justice. The more they thought about it, the more they realized that the Galactic Council had crossed a line. They had underestimated humanity, and for that, they would pay. The news of Emily's death spread across the galaxy, reaching the far corners of the universe. But no one could have prepared for the reaction that was to come. Humans were not known for their rage, but when they were pushed too far, they became a force that no one could ignore. The humans on the colony decided they would not stand by and do nothing. They began to rally, speaking out against the Galactic Council's actions. A sense of unity formed among the people. They would not allow one of their own to be murdered without consequence. They would fight back, and the first step was to warn the Galactic Council that humanity was not a species to be taken lightly. As the news spread, other human colonies began to follow suit. They sent messages of defiance to the Council, demanding justice for Emily. And then came the message from the Earth Federation, a group of military leaders and scientists who had long been working on human advancements in secret. Captain Marcus Stone, the leader of the Federation, stood before a gathering of human leaders, preparing to send a clear message to the Galactic Council. His voice was steady, yet filled with the weight of the decision he was about to make. "We will not stand by while one of our own is murdered," Captain Stone said. "We have been patient for too long. Now, we will make them regret underestimating us. And to the Galactic Council, we have one message for you. Pray." These words were simple, yet they carried a heavy meaning. They were not just a warning, they were a declaration of war. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, and now they were ready to fight back with everything they had. The Federation began to mobilize their hidden fleet, ships that had been built in secret, using technologies older than anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. These ships were the last remnants of an ancient human empire, one that had been wiped out long ago by the very same council. But now, the time had come to awaken these forgotten warships and use them to strike back. As the Federation ships prepared for battle, the Galactic Council remained unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. They believed the humans were too weak to do anything of consequence, but they had made a fatal mistake. In the depths of space, the human fleet began to move, ready to bring vengeance to the Galactic Council. The Federation's ships were massive and ancient, brimming with weapons and power. The humans were about to show the galaxy that they were not a species to be underestimated. The Council would soon learn that when they killed Emily, they had ignited something far more dangerous than they could ever have imagined. After the loss of Emily, the humans began to rally like never before. The death of one innocent girl had sparked a fire that spread throughout the human colonies, reaching even the farthest outposts of the Earth Federation. Humanity was no longer a fractured group of colonies. They were united by one goal: revenge. The Earth Federation had long been preparing for a day when humanity would have to defend itself against the power of the Galactic Council. The Federation was a secret organization, known only to the highest-ranking officials. They had built ships, weapons, and technologies in silence, knowing that the day would come when they would need to face the powerful forces that ruled the galaxy. That day had arrived. Captain Marcus Stone was a man of great resolve, a leader who had earned the respect of those around him. His calm demeanor and fierce determination were what made him the right person to lead the humans in their quest for justice. He was not a soldier by birth, but he had become one in the face of humanity's greatest challenge. Stone stood at the command center of the Federation's main base, staring at a large map of the galaxy. The map was filled with red dots, representing the locations of the Galactic Council's forces. It was a grim sight, and Stone knew that defeating them would not be easy. The Council had control over countless worlds, and their ships outnumbered the human fleet by far. But there was one thing they didn't account for: humanity's resolve. "Captain," one of his advisors said, breaking the silence, "the fleet is ready. We've been working on the final preparations. It's time to move." Stone nodded, his jaw set firmly. "Let's get to work." The human fleet was ancient, built with long-forgotten technologies. It had been kept hidden for generations, awaiting the day when it would be needed. The ships were enormous, built to withstand the harshest conditions, and they were armed with weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Galactic Council had never seen anything like them before. As the human fleet began to move toward the center of the galaxy, news of their actions spread quickly. The Galactic Council, having underestimated humanity for so long, was caught off guard. They had been busy maintaining their rule, unaware that a powerful force was rising right under their noses. On the Council's flagship, the leaders of the most powerful alien races sat in a grand chamber. They were an imposing group, a towering insectoid race, a race of telepathic beings, a humanoid species with elongated arms, and a cold, calculating reptilian race. They ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, keeping the peace through fear. But now they were faced with something they hadn't anticipated: humanity's wrath. "Captain," said one of the telepathic leaders, his voice calm and collected, "reports indicate that the humans are moving. We've detected their fleet." The insectoid leader's antennae twitched with concern. "What do we know of these ships? Are they a threat?" The reptilian leader snorted, his scales gleaming. "It's just a few old ships. We have much more firepower. Why should we worry?" The telepathic leader closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. After a long pause, he spoke again. "There's something more to these ships. I can feel it. They're not as simple as they seem." The insectoid leader turned to the reptilian leader, his voice sharp. "We've made a mistake before. We can't afford to underestimate them again. Prepare our fleet." As the Galactic Council's forces began to mobilize, the human fleet moved swiftly through space, unrelenting in their pursuit of justice. The Federation ships were not just a collection of warships, they were a symbol of humanity's strength, built from the lessons learned in the darkest days of history. These ships had been designed to be more than just weapons. They were a reflection of the human spirit, determined, resilient, and capable of overcoming any obstacle. The humans didn't have the sheer numbers of the Galactic Council, but they had something far more powerful: the element of surprise. The Council had not expected humanity to come together in such a way. They believed humans were weak, divided by their many colonies and different cultures. But they were wrong. Humanity had found unity in their grief, in the loss of one of their own. As the human fleet approached the Galactic Council's stronghold, Captain Stone stood at the helm of the flagship, his eyes scanning the vastness of space. His crew was at their stations, preparing for the battle ahead. They had trained for years, and now it was time to put their skills to the test. "Target their command ship," Captain Stone ordered. "Take down their leadership, and the rest will fall." The human ships began to charge toward the Galactic Council's forces. The sound of engines roaring and weapons powering up filled the command center. The Federation had no intention of backing down. They were ready for whatever came their way. The first shots were fired, and the galaxy trembled. The human ships, though smaller and older than the Council's, were deadly. They unleashed their full firepower, sending waves of destruction toward the enemy fleet. The Council's ships, caught off guard, were unable to respond in time. The human fleet tore through their lines with unrelenting force. "Captain, their ships are falling back," one of the crew members said. "We've broken their line." Captain Stone stood tall, his eyes narrowing. "We haven't won yet. Keep pushing forward." The battle raged on, and the humans showed no mercy. They fought not just for revenge, but for the future of their species. Every blast fired, every maneuver made, was a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. As the human ships continued their relentless assault, the Council's leaders began to panic. They had not expected such fierce resistance. The reptilian leader, who had once been so confident in his superiority, now found himself questioning his underestimation of the humans. "Where is their weakness?" the reptilian leader demanded. "Why are they fighting like this?" "They're fighting for something more than just survival," the telepathic leader replied, his voice filled with a sense of dread. "They're fighting for justice, for the memory of their fallen." The insectoid leader's antennae twitched again, sensing the weight of the situation. "We've made a grave mistake. These humans are not to be underestimated. We must retreat." But it was too late. The human fleet had already broken through the defenses of the Council's forces. Their command ship, the heart of their power, was now within reach. The Federation had done what was thought to be impossible. They had crippled the Galactic Council's might. As the human fleet celebrated their victory, Captain Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars. The mission wasn't over, but this battle was a message to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer weak, and they would never again allow themselves to be underestimated. The battle between humanity and the Galactic Council was far from over. The Federation fleet had struck a significant blow, but the Galactic Council was not one to back down easily. Despite the overwhelming power of the human forces, they still held the upper hand in numbers, and they were quick to regroup. The humans had made a statement, one that echoed across the galaxy, but they knew that the real test was yet to come. The Galactic Council had not just been defeated, they had been humiliated. That humiliation, however, was a dangerous thing. The Council would not let a species as young as humanity challenge their dominance. Captain Marcus Stone stood at the command center of the Federation flagship, the heart of the human resistance. The map of the galaxy displayed before him flickered with red dots, showing the locations of the Council's remaining forces. He knew that the battle ahead would not be an easy one. The humans had dealt a heavy blow, but now it was time to finish what they had started. The Federation's fleet was ready to continue its assault. Stone's eyes scanned the ship's status reports. Every ship was in position. The Federation's forces were few, but they were determined. Unlike the Galactic Council, the humans had no desire for conquest. They only wanted to protect their people and seek justice for the death of Emily. But in doing so, they had awakened a much larger conflict, one that would not end until one side emerged victorious. "Captain Stone," a voice said, interrupting his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Kira Harris, his trusted second-in-command. She stepped forward, her face serious. "We've detected a new fleet moving toward us. It's bigger than anything we've seen before." Stone's heart sank. The Galactic Council had been preparing for this moment. They were coming for the Federation, and they were bringing their full force. "How long until they arrive?" Stone asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. 6 hours, Captain," Harris replied. "We need to prepare." Stone turned his attention to the map once more. The red dots were multiplying, and he knew that the battle would soon be upon them. Humanity had been fighting with everything they had, but now it seemed as though they would be tested in ways they had never imagined. "We will make our stand here," Stone declared. "Prepare the fleet for the worst. I won't let them destroy what we've built." Harris nodded and moved to relay the orders. As the human ships readied for battle, the Galactic Council's fleet moved steadily through space. The fleet was enormous, a sea of ships that seemed to stretch to infinity. The human fleet, small and ancient by comparison, was vastly outnumbered. The humans had only one advantage: their weapons and tactics were unpredictable. The Council had never fought an opponent like them before, and that uncertainty gave the humans an edge. The ships in the Council's fleet were sleek and powerful, designed for speed and efficiency. The human ships, however, were different. They were built for survival, not elegance. Every ship was a hodgepodge of old technology, modified and upgraded with whatever could be salvaged. But they worked. They were strong. And they had something else the Galactic Council didn't: a burning desire for justice. As the two fleets drew closer, the tension was palpable. The Federation ships took their positions, ready to defend their home. They had fought hard to get here, and now they would fight to protect their future. "Captain," Harris said, her voice filled with urgency, "the Council's fleet is almost within range. They're about to open fire." Stone nodded. "Activate shields and weapons. We've come too far to turn back now." With a deafening roar, the first shots rang out. The Federation's ancient ships fired their weapons with deadly precision. Their projectiles slammed into the Council's ships, sending them tumbling backward. The Council's forces retaliated quickly, launching an onslaught of laser blasts and missiles. The space between the two fleets became a deadly battlefield. The human ships maneuvered with surprising agility, dodging incoming fire and returning the shots with deadly accuracy. The Council's ships, though larger and faster, struggled to keep up with the unpredictable tactics of the human fleet. For the first time in their existence, the Galactic Council found themselves at a disadvantage. Direct hit on their command. "Ship!" one of the officers shouted from the control panel. "We've broken through their shields!" Stone's face tightened with determination. "Keep the pressure on them! We can't stop now!" The battle raged on for hours. The Federation fleet was taking heavy losses, but they fought with everything they had. Each ship was a symbol of their defiance, a testament to their unwillingness to be silenced. The Galactic Council's forces began to buckle under the pressure. They had never anticipated such fierce resistance from a species they had deemed insignificant. But the humans were not done yet. As the Council's fleet began to retreat, Stone saw his opportunity. This was the moment to strike. "Deploy the final phase," Stone ordered. "We're going after their command ship." The final phase was a risky maneuver, but it was humanity's last chance to end this war once and for all. The human ships pulled together, forming a tight formation as they charged toward the heart of the Council's fleet. The command ship, the largest and most heavily defended of all, loomed ahead, surrounded by a wall of enemy ships. The human fleet pressed forward, their weapons firing nonstop. The air crackled with energy as the battle intensified. The humans' ships moved with precision, working together as a single unit to breach the defenses of the Council's flagship. It was a dangerous mission, but the humans had nothing left to lose. "Captain, we've cleared the outer defenses," Harris reported. "We're almost there." Stone's heart raced. This was the moment. He could feel it in the air. The Federation had given everything for this victory, and now the Council would finally understand the cost of their actions. "Prepare to fire everything we've got," Stone said, his voice steady. "This ends today." The human fleet launched a full assault on the command ship. Every weapon was fired at once, sending shockwaves through the enemy ship. The shields of the Galactic Council's flagship flickered and failed, and with one final blow, the command ship exploded into a cloud of debris. The battle fell silent for a moment, as both fleets assessed the damage. The Galactic Council's leadership had been shattered. The once mighty fleet that had ruled over the galaxy now lay in ruin, and the humans had emerged victorious. But Stone knew the battle was not truly over. There would be consequences. The Galactic Council would not take this defeat lightly. But, for now, the humans had proven their strength. The Federation had stood its ground, and the galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the Federation's attack left the galaxy in shock. The Galactic Council, once the supreme authority over countless worlds, had just experienced a defeat unlike any other in its long history. The humans, a species they had long dismissed as insignificant, had turned the tide of a galactic war. The impact of the Federation's strike echoed across the universe, and the balance of power shifted in an instant. Captain Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes focused on the vastness of space. The battle was far from over, but humanity had already proven something that no one could deny. They had the strength and will to fight against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. It was a message that had been sent loud and clear. "Captain," Lieutenant Kira Harris said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "The Galactic Council has sent reinforcements. Their fleet is approaching fast." Stone's jaw tightened. The battle had only just begun. He had expected the Council to retaliate, but he had hoped that they would reconsider their actions. The humans were not just a threat to be wiped out. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Prepare the fleet," Stone ordered, his voice steady. "We're not finished yet. We will fight until the very end." The human fleet, though battered, was ready for the next phase of the war. The ships that had once been seen as outdated and obsolete were now a symbol of humanity's resilience. They had fought with everything they had, and now they would show the galaxy that their victory was not just a fluke. They would prove that humans were a force to be respected. As the Galactic Council's reinforcements arrived, the Federation's fleet moved into position. The two forces faced each other across the stars, the tension between them thick enough to be felt in the air. The fate of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. Would the Council's power be restored, or would humanity's resolve carry them to a victory that would change the universe forever? "Captain," Harris said, her voice breaking the silence. "The enemy fleet is massive. They outnumber us by 3-1. Stone's eyes narrowed. He had known this would happen, but it didn't matter. Humanity was not going to back down. This was a fight for survival, and they would fight with everything they had. "We may be outnumbered, but we have something they don't," Stone said, his voice filled with determination. "We have the strength of our people, the courage to fight, and the will to protect everything we've built. That is what will win us this battle." The first shots were fired, and the battle began anew. The Federation's ships unleashed their full firepower, targeting the Council's fleet with deadly precision. The human ships moved with surprising agility, dodging enemy fire and returning shots with deadly accuracy. The Council's ships, though larger and more powerful, struggled to match the unpredictability of the humans' tactics. Despite the overwhelming numbers of the Galactic Council, the Federation was holding their ground. The battle raged on for hours, with both sides taking heavy losses. Each time the humans pushed forward, the Council fought back, determined to restore their control over the galaxy. But the humans were relentless. They fought not just for victory, but for their survival. They fought for Emily, for the many who had died at the hands of the Council, and for the future of humanity. In the midst of the chaos, Stone stood at the heart of the battle, guiding his fleet with the calm, unshakable presence that had made him a respected leader. His mind was focused, his every decision crucial to the outcome of the war. His crew moved with precision, anticipating his orders and executing them flawlessly. The Federation fleet was a well-oiled machine, and Stone was its engine. "Captain," Harris said, her voice breaking through the roar of the battle. "We've breached their outer defenses. Their command ship is within range." Stone's eyes lit up with determination. "This is it. We take down their command ship, and we win this war." The human fleet moved forward, their ships pushing through the Council's remaining defenses with unrelenting force. The battle had reached its climax, and there was no turning back. The Council's command ship, the largest and most powerful of their fleet, was within their grasp. Stone knew that taking it down would send a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity would not be silenced. The Federation's ships gathered in formation, preparing for one final decisive strike. The Council's command ship, surrounded by a wall of enemy ships, seemed like an impenetrable fortress. But the humans were not intimidated. They had faced impossible odds before, and they were not about to back down now. "We hit them with everything we've got," Stone ordered. "This is the final blow." The human ships fired in unison, their weapons launching a barrage of deadly projectiles toward the Council's flagship. The air crackled with energy as the Federation's ships unleashed their full firepower. Council's shields began to flicker, struggling to withstand the onslaught. For the first time, the Galactic Council's flagship seemed vulnerable. "Shields failing," one of the officers reported. "We've broken through their outer defenses." Stone nodded. "Keep pushing. We can't let up now." The human ships continued their assault, their weapons firing non-stop. The Council's flagship rocked under the barrage, its shields failing one by one. The Federation's ships had found the weak point in the Council's defenses, and they weren't letting go. With a final deafening roar, the human fleet launched one last powerful strike. The Council's command ship exploded into a cloud of debris, the massive ship torn apart by the force of the human weapons. The battle fell silent for a moment as both sides assessed the damage. The Council's leadership had been shattered. Their command ship, the symbol of their power, was now nothing more than space debris. The Federation's ships had emerged victorious. Stone stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. The battle had been long, and many had fallen, but the humans had won. They had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Federation's victory sent ripples across the galaxy. The news of the destruction of the Council's command ship spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the universe. For the first time, the rest of the galaxy saw humanity not as a weak and primitive species, but as a powerful force capable of changing the course of history. But Stone knew that this victory was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would not give up so easily. They would regroup, rebuild, and come back stronger than before. But humanity had proven something. They were no longer afraid. They would stand up and fight for their future, no matter the cost. The battle for the galaxy was far from over, but one thing was clear: humanity would never again be underestimated. The battle for the galaxy had reached its peak. The Galactic Council, once the unquestioned rulers of the stars, had been dealt a blow unlike any they had ever faced. The destruction of their command ship had sent shockwaves through their forces, shaking their confidence and morale. But even in the face of this disaster, the Council was not one to back down. They would fight to the very end, knowing that if they lost this war, they would lose everything. Captain Marcus Stone stood at the helm of the Federation flagship, staring out at the chaos of the battlefield. The human fleet had won the day, but the cost had been high. Many ships had been lost, and countless lives had been sacrificed. The Federation's victory had come at a steep price, but it had been worth it. The message was clear. Humanity would not be subjugated. They would not be silenced. They would stand tall and fight for their future. "Captain, we've received a message from the Council," Lieutenant Kira Harris said, breaking the silence. "They're requesting a ceasefire." Stone's expression hardened. The Council had finally realized the magnitude of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were desperate for peace. But Stone knew that peace with the Council would come at a cost. The humans had suffered too much to simply forgive and forget. "What do they want?" Stone asked, his voice calm but filled with suspicion. "They're offering to negotiate," Harris replied. "They want to end the war, to avoid further destruction." Stone crossed his arms, deep in thought. He had always known that the Council would try to strike a deal, but the idea of negotiating with them felt wrong. The loss of Emily, the lives of countless humans, and the suffering they had endured could not simply be forgotten. "Tell them we'll negotiate," Stone said finally, his voice cold. "But the terms will be ours. If they want peace, they'll have to pay for their mistakes." As the Federation prepared for the negotiations, the Galactic Council's representatives arrived on the human flagship. The delegation was led by the telepathic leader, who had been one of the most vocal advocates for humanity's destruction. His face was a mask of calm, but Stone could see the fear in his eyes. The once proud leaders of the Galactic Council were now on the defensive, desperate to avoid total defeat. The telepathic leader spoke first. "Captain Stone, we come in peace. The destruction of our fleet has shown us the power of your people. We no longer wish to continue this war." Stone's eyes narrowed. "The war is over, but the cost will be high. You've taken a lot from us, and we won't forget that easily." The telepathic leader bowed his head in acknowledgement. "We understand your pain. The Council was wrong. We did not recognize the strength of your people, and for that, we are sorry. We offer peace and the promise that humanity will no longer be threatened by the Council." Stone stood silent for a moment, weighing the Council's offer. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. It was tempting to end the war, to put an end to the suffering and the losses. But at what cost? Could they really trust the Council to keep their word? "What about the human colonies you've oppressed?" Stone asked, his voice steady but firm. "What about the countless lives you've destroyed?" The telepathic leader hesitated before responding. "We will lift all restrictions on human colonies. We will no longer interfere in your affairs. You will have the freedom to govern yourselves as you see fit." Stone looked at him, his gaze cold. "And what about the death of Emily? What about the millions of others who've suffered because of your actions? Can you bring them back?" The telepathic leader's eyes softened, but there was little he could say. "We cannot undo the past, but we can promise that no more will suffer because of the Council's decisions." Stone's gaze shifted to the rest of the Council's representatives, who stood silently behind the telepathic leader. They were all defeated, their once proud faces now marked by the weight of their failure. The time for diplomacy had passed. The Federation had proven their strength, and now it was time to ensure that the Galactic Council would never threaten humanity again. "We will agree to peace," Stone said finally, his voice steady. "But there are terms. The Galactic Council must recognize humanity as an equal power in the galaxy. Your forces will leave human space immediately, and you will never return. If you break this agreement, we will come for you." The telepathic leader nodded, accepting the terms. "We agree to your terms. Peace will be established, and the Galactic Council will honor the agreement." Stone turned to Harris. "Prepare the fleet. We've won this war, but the galaxy will never be the same." As the negotiations concluded and the Council representatives left, a sense of relief washed over the human fleet. The war was over. The Galactic Council had been forced to acknowledge humanity's strength, and they had promised to leave human space in peace. But Stone knew that this victory was only the beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that they could rise to any challenge, no matter how great. But the question now was, what would they do with that power? Would they become a force for good, helping to rebuild a galaxy torn apart by war? Or would they become just another empire, seeking to dominate and control? The future of humanity was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They had earned their place in the galaxy. They had shown that even the smallest and weakest species could stand up against the mightiest of empires. The Galactic Council had fallen, and humanity had emerged victorious. As the Federation fleet sailed back toward Earth, Captain Stone stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. The battle for the galaxy had been long and hard, but they had won. The Council was defeated, and the future was now in humanity's hands.